Oh my WAWD, it's another episode with me, your host, Evan Arcade, and Jason Patrick. What's up, Jason?
Hey man, how you doing?
Pretty good, pretty good. Everybody, as always, you can find us on Instagram, which is just Oh My WAWD. We're also now on Apple iTunes. Obviously for this podcast, you might have already be listening to us on iTunes, but we're also on Spotify. And as of right now, slowly but surely, all these episodes, we actually do record them via video chat, and they're finally making their way on YouTube. I don't know why I'm doing this, but we're up there. We're getting up there. You're going to be able to see
my
our
stupid face if you want to.
exactly mugs on there. But if there's only way for you guys to listen to it or stream it, you could probably play that in the background and do that. A lot of people do that with YouTube, from what I heard. So
And it might be useful because I know when I worked at Venmo, I worked from home a lot. Or no, I worked on a computer, so I had that second screen. So I usually always had YouTube up on there.
Mhm.
So it might be easier for people to listen.
Yeah, for sure. So it's there, and I mean, sometimes we do show stuff on camera. Not that we expect you guys to know what it is while we're talking about it, but we do describe it. But you'll be able to see it.
And you can see our cool shirts.
Exactly.
Our cool shirts we always wear.
Cool stuff. And now I'm doing product placement, which I need to do. This is basically the reason why. It's produced by Hip Arcade. Hip Arcade makes cool stuff. Check out the website. We also have an email, ohmywawd@gmail.com, for any topic suggestions and comments and whatnot. Would you like to introduce us to today's topic?
Yeah, so this is my topic this episode. And yeah, so it's about opinions. So the reason why I kind of thought of this, I know we don't, we briefly mention music every now and then. I guess it's not one of my major passions, but the reason why I thought of the idea is I watched The Needle Drop on YouTube, which is Anthony Fantano. He's like the big music nerd on there, music critic.
I didn't know that.
And he, I'm not big on music, so usually I go to him for recommendations or opinions on stuff. So I was just thinking how opinions affect our own views on things, hearing what someone else thinks about it and how that affects, in turn, like how that affects what you think about it. Mm-hmm. And then also, we want to get into hype and how that affects films, or even like positive and negative hype, where you go in with thinking it's going to be great, or if you go into something knowing it's going to be terrible, ends up being better than actually you thought it would be because of that. So yeah.
Cool. That's funny. Also, going back to the music dude, you said he's really big for all that music stuff. Like, does he just like all genres, or is just kind of like he just likes the stuff that you like, so you follow him because of that?
Oh no, not at all. Like, he's pretty eclectic. He's really into like metal, but he does a lot of rap reviews. I mean, he's all over the place as far as what he reviews.
That's
but
cool, then.
He keeps busy, so like he pumps out a lot of content, and I know he's probably the biggest like music reviewer on YouTube for sure.
So when it comes to like you said, reviews and all of that, and I'm trying to think too, because I do look them up, and nowadays you just kind of you just go straight to Google. It kind of aggregates all these other websites. You don't actually go, I mean, I personally don't go to these websites directly anymore. I mean, one of the most popular one, if the most popular one, is Rotten Tomatoes, right? I mean, you see that pop up on iTunes immediately. Like, you could check what the Rotten Tomato meter is. I don't know, tomato meter?
Tomato meter, yeah.
Tomato meter, right?
Tomato meter, yeah.
It'll say there off the bat, so you can say like, oh man, that movie did really bad. And this is kind of how I know a lot of the movies that I love. When we talked about guilty pleasures were bad, because I would look them up there. Yeah. And I'm like, damn, I love this movie so much, and it's like 10%, Yeah. So, for me, I look at it also with a grain of salt, right? Like, I'd be like, yeah, well, fuck that guy. What does he know? And I'll go see it and then still be like, oh, yeah, he was right. Or like, no, they were wrong. What sites do you like to go to that you can say you trust them enough to be like, or even a person, right? Because sometimes, those other sites that just kind of aggregate all reviews. Is there anybody you call particularly? Or just go to what sites? Sorry.
I mean, not anymore, I guess. Like, when I was a kid, and I'm sure a lot of people did this when we were into movies, I would always get the Friday paper, the Chicago Sun-Times, to see like what Ebert gave,
Wow, you actually read those?
Yeah, I would read them. And I would. There was a time in my life where I would literally like wake up or like leave the house like early in the morning to catch like the fucking truck dropping off the newspaper just to get like, I think it was called like the Weekend Plus or something. I'm not sure what that part of the paper was.
This is because you just thought they were gonna run out?
No,
Or
I
you
just
had it first
I
one?
wanted to find out as quickly as possible.
Right,
You know,
right.
and this was before like, you know, no, I don't know if it was before the internet, but
I
maybe
mean,
I
it could
just,
have been AOL
yeah.
days, back then.
I mean, maybe it was just in the papers at the time. It
Hmm.
wasn't actually on, you know, now they have a website, so it's a lot easier.
Yeah.
So there was that person. I know back in the day, I don't read them anymore, but Ain't It Cool News? I would go to that website a lot.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah,
Uh,
I used to look at
yeah.
that too. Yeah.
And they're still a thing, but I guess some shit happened with the guy who founded that website, Harry. So
Yep.
a lot of people left. But there was a guy on there named Drew McQueenie.
Yeah,
He
I remember that
he
name.
went by Moriarty.
Yeah, yeah,
Was
yeah.
his like
Okay.
nickname. I really liked his reviews. And so yeah, just reading his stuff, I eventually like yeah, he kind of line. Now he doesn't line up like as far as like what I think of something, but I just thought he was one of the better writers on there. And then he eventually went to this. He made this website called HitFix, and he was writing on there for a bit. But then eventually, like you know, like you said, now I think it's gone towards these aggregate places. So like Rotten
Yeah.
Tomatoes, you know, and I like Rotten Tomatoes and Metacritic. Like I like how they have like critic reviews and the user score as well. Uh, you know, as far as I'm concerned, I typically go toward the critic review side of
Right,
things because I think people are kind of dumb or have
yeah.
terrible taste in
I was
things.
about to say that. Like, people are stupid.
So I don't believe that, but like, you know, I think Metacritic is a much more uh, detailed, you know, detail as far as like how their score system works because it is kind of weird. Like someone reviews something and I guess they give it a number between 1 through 100 and they aggregate it that way. Whereas Rotten Tomatoes is just like, is it a positive or a negative review? It's either rotten or fresh, right?
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah, you're right. They still use a percentage once they do it though.
Yeah, but even like,
Like if it's below 50, I think it's a rotten one or something.
yeah, it's like 50 or 60 or something. It probably is
Mhm.
50. uh, but it's just it's not like not detailed. That's not the word I'm looking for. But it's just you know like so like it's for instance like if a movie comes out and it's just a good movie, like some people are gonna love it, some people are gonna think it's good or great, and like a movie like that is not gonna get like a negative rating typically.
Mhm.
Like the example I'm thinking of is Get Out, because when Get Out came out, like it was 100%. And
That's
like it's
true.
of course it's gonna be 100%. Like even if you don't love Get Out, like it's not a bad movie. You're gonna give it a positive rating. So it's just not as I keep coming up detailed. You need to help me with this word.
No,
It's
I
not
mean, look,
detailed.
I mean, that's a good way of putting it though. Like I
Hmm.
can't, what else it would be? It's just, yeah, you're right. No, I feel like there is a word, but now I'm
Figure it
not
out.
getting it.
I'll figure
But
it out. My brain's dying, so yeah.
but told you. Um, we're recording it's at 9 o'clock my time on the
Hmm.
West Coast, but
Oh no, my brain's just dying in general in life. Like
it's
yeah.
all. Um, yeah, I would say like it's funny you mentioned that going back to any cool news. I don't think I ever really read reviews. I think I would just read them for like spoilers,
Uh-huh.
or not even spoilers, but just like stuff like they would say like, "Hey, we heard they're casting this person," or they were on set and this is what that was. This was filming it. I think there was this. Wasn't there like another dude on there? Like he had like a weird Mexican name or
And there was a guy named Capone. He was from
yeah,
Chicago.
my bad. Yeah, that's the guy I remember, Capone.
I remember
And it,
Mazarin, and he actually got into movie making. He wrote the script for Sinister, which I really love that movie.
oh, cool. Well, I feel like a lot of these critics are like, especially those that are starting off on websites like that. That's like kind of like one of their end goals. Like they're critics, but they want to elevate themselves to actually start getting in the business. This
Right.
has happened a lot with. I used to follow a lot Slash Film. If you remember Slash Film,
Okay.
it's mostly just an entertainment news site, but they would also post reviews. And then after a while, I'd be like, these guys are stupid. Like these, not all of them. Like some of them had good stuff that they were talking about. Some of them are too elevated in like they're obviously intellectuals. They went to school for film and cinema, and they try to break down I'm like, dude, it's just a regular popcorn movie. Who gives a shit? Like, let's get into it that far, that deep. But I guess they're just trying to like flex their intellectual muscles and saying like, well, this is, relating back to this and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, whatever. I don't really care. At that point, it's just like, whether you liked it or not, it's not even going to affect me anymore because I just want to see it because it's like the next hit movie or, somebody like really famous is in it. I think back then, I think even now, like, I don't think I'm that driven by reviews as I am by who's in it, because if a certain actor's in it, I'm going to say like, well, they generally have a good list of films that they've done. Like they're pretty good about picking the films they want to be in. Uh-huh. So, I mean, that's not always the case, right? Like there's still a lot of shitty movies or just movies that just don't end up making a dent, like they don't end up being really great or really bad. It's just kind of like mediocre and they get forgotten. Mm-hmm. So, but I remember there was this one critic too. He's still around, obviously. He made a name for himself simply by being contradictory. It was Armand White. You remember him? Mm-hmm.
So he might have been the guy who gave like the one negative review to Get Out because like it was 100% until it wasn't.
Yeah, he did that. Yeah, I think he was. And I think that's the reason why he did it because he's like, no movie deserves to be this good. And I kind of agree with him. Like, how is it nobody's finding fault with these films?
I mean, even if you find a fault with a movie, like it's not a bad movie. Like if you see Parasite, totally right. If you see Parasite, you don't love Parasite, right? You can't say Parasite's a bad movie. So that's why like Rotten Tomatoes is flawed in that way. Yeah, it's just fresh or rotten, and there's no. I keep fucking getting back to that word. I'm gonna figure it out before this episode's over. But
I mean, the same thing with like we talked about Greta Gerwig. She's great, but the same thing happened when Lady Bird came out. It's like it was 100%. I think it was also another 100% movie. And I started feeling like now in the last couple of years, a lot of these films are becoming 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. And I'm like, come on, like they're good. And I'm not saying like I want them to find fault with it. Like yes, somebody hated it. Nobody see it because one person hated it. Like I don't really care. I just don't like it when people say like this is perfect because I don't believe there's a perfect film. Mm-hmm. And that's the only thing that gets me. But yeah, I mean, like, I like to look at them. I think more than anything, I'll check out a site's ratings, or I mean, a site for the rating of a film after I see it. Because I'll have my own like, opinion. I'll be like, I don't know how I felt about that. Like some people are more articulate than I am, and I want to read what they think about it, and I'll read them like, yeah, that's true. Like I did feel this about that part, or this sounds stupid, but either way, for the most part, I thought. This is like, like I thought the same thing, or I didn't think that bad about it or something, like if I liked it and somebody else hated it, oh, well. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of weird, but I don't think I've ever been that influenced. I guess influence is the word for me is by a lot of these critics, really. I mean, maybe because I just felt like, who the hell are you? Like outside of like Ebert, like Ebert and Roper, for me, like they were the people you want to listen to ever. Mm-hmm. Like I've had the distinct pleasure. I've met Siskel, not Roper. I mean Siskel and Ebert.
Yeah. And Roper was fine, but he was no Siskel.
Yeah, exactly. Sure. But I remember having met him, and it was such a cool thing. Like I was a kid. And I was like, I still knew who they were, like, because I mean, like they did the whole like thumbs up and thumbs down. That was their thing. I mean, that's fresh or not fresh right there.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, that's good enough. If it was good enough for them these two guys, intellectual guys, and they're like the epitome of that. It almost felt like they were New Yorkers or something. But I think I remember seeing, and we got a free pass to go see Beethoven. Remember Beethoven, the dog movie?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, it was I think it was at what is now the Siskel Center or whatever. One of those.
Gene Siskel Film Center?
Yeah. And he was there with his kid. I think we were roughly the same age. And my dad was like, hey, it's him. It's Siskel. And we just walked up to him like, I don't know what to say. Because I'm like, I was a kid. I didn't really watch the show, I didn't even remember what time it was on, but I just knew of them. Yeah. And it was so cool because he was like engaging. He was just kind of like, hey, like, hi, like, nice to meet you. What did you guys think of the movie? Like, we loved it. It was pretty fun, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, yeah, it was pretty funny, blah, blah. Like, what else are you going to say to a kid? Um, but I just thought it was really
Shit.
cool. Like, he didn't seem like he was stuck up or anything, you know. As opposed to like I guess like I don't know Ebert. You know, Ebert seems like a really fun guy too, or what seemed like a fun guy to be around. Obviously, when he was out there doing it, but I just thought like he was like they were like the only people that I ever like really enjoyed listening to because I thought these guys are obviously smart. You know, they look really well dressed. You know, they're very studious and academic.
Yeah.
I will listen to them, and they would teach me things that I was like, well, I never looked at a film that way. I never even thought to look at it that way. So it kind of definitely opened up my mind to how to interpret films, which I think is really cool. Which I think is what critics should be doing, rather than just saying like, shitting all over a film or just saying, like, going gaga over something, versus just kind of really explaining why.
Yeah, and I guess I got, like getting more into, not more into, but staying on this, I guess, as far as like where I get it from.
Yeah.
I'm a big podcast guy, so like
Mm-hmm.
Film Junk is my go-to podcast. Like that's my favorite out there, and it's just these three dudes from Canada. And yeah, I mean, those are not like as an intellectual conversation. It's just more of like a conversation between friends.
Yeah.
But one of the guys is a filmmaker that I've mentioned on here before. And so, yeah, I mean, they have a lot of interesting discussions. There's a lot of humor there. But then, there's also Film Spotting, which is recorded in Chicago, plays on WBZ, I believe, radio. Those are like more intellectual conversations about film. So I mean, I don't listen to those as much. They do like a March Madness thing every year, like a 64 film bracket that I really like, and I also like listening to their end of year stuff because they do like a two-parter where they'll have people on it, and they usually have Michael Phillips who writes for the Tribune.
Tribune, yeah.
Actually, you're talking about meeting Cisco. Back when I worked at the movie theater, I went to a screening or like a midnight showing of Paranormal Activity. And like when I left out the theater, he had just watched it too. So I saw him walk. I saw him and I recognized him from Film Spotting and whatnot. And I talked to him for a second. He was a cool dude.
That's cool.
He liked the film and he was very nice to me. Like seemed interested in what I was talking to him about.
Right.
Yeah, and then outside of that, I go to IGN. I don't know why I do, just because IGN just I don't even really like the site anymore too much. But whenever I'm on my phone and I pull up Google Chrome, IGN's like the first thing I go to like all the time.
That's why you go to it.
Because I just go to it. It's just force of habit, I guess, at this point. But when a movie comes out, I am interested in what they give it, but I don't really put too much weight because like I don't really know those people or like
yeah, exactly.
necessarily respect their opinion. I'm not to be a dick about it.
Of course.
I don't genuinely mean that, but I just like look at what score they give it and maybe read the last paragraph, like the overall
recap
summary. Yeah. Like I don't read full reviews anymore. And then YouTube as well. There's two guys in particular I follow, Jeremy Jans. Like these like the two biggest guys, Jeremy Jans and Chris Stuckman. I like both of them. Jeremy, they're both kind of more like covering mainstream films. So, it's not like highly intellectual or like deep into the like independent industry or whatnot. But they're still easy, digestible, less than 10-minute videos usually reviewing stuff. So
see, that's
it's nice. Easy to watch them.
Less than 10. I mean, that's nice. Not as long as a podcast like ours. No, I'm kidding.
They keep it nice and I mean, because they just do videos for each film that comes out or whatever. That's cool. That's exact. I guess I'm kind of gonna follow.
That's what you wanted
in that mode once I make my own YouTube. Like I'm gonna do those main reviews like they do. So
gotta get to it, man.
Yeah.
Otherwise, your girlfriend's gonna beat you to it. She recently posted. She's
making a podcast. I'm like, I mean, we had, you
guys would have been talking about it before that. So
yeah, I mean, when when the new year hit, we did like kind of go to a cafe and kind of sat down and made a list of like goes for the year. And so my goal was to launch my YouTube by June. I don't know if that's going to happen, but this is kind of this podcast that you wanted to start doing. It's been a good outlet for that. But I do want to eventually, once I get the equipment, I want to start it. So, but yeah, she's going to be doing a podcast soon. I asked her if you want me to help her set up the feed or anything. So she's like, yeah, I'll let you know.
Yeah, well, all that stuff.
Yeah.
I'm going to see really quick because I want to go over some of the films that I thought, because we did kind of go over where we got our opinions from.
Yeah.
And before I go into any film stuff, is it so I just told you, for me, I don't really let them affect me that much when it comes to reviews and critics, but the hype definitely affects whether I'm going to see a movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like before we get into hype, for you, is it something if do you read the reviews first before you go into a movie?
No, whenever I see a review, like Rotten Tomatoes, they usually just take those little snippets as part of the review.
Yeah.
I'll read through a few of those. But outside of that, I don't I don't want to spoil anything for myself, obviously.
Right, of course, yeah. But I also think because I think most critics are always under embargo, they can't say anything until the film's actually out before they actually release the full thing. So they'll be able to be like, I saw the movie, and that's all they'll say. It was interesting, and that's it.
Well, usually when the comic book movies comes out, they'll have a screening a week or two in advance, and
exactly.
You'll just see these. I'm not really on Twitter, but IGN will write a story aggregating all the people that wrote about it on Twitter.
Yep.
And it's usually glowing reviews. But I guess
that's the thing though.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm getting at is that's hype right there, because a lot of that is misleading, and I feel like a lot of that is done just so you can go to those websites.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the movie was there was this awesome part, but then you get to the review once the movie comes out, and they're like, it really falls apart. It doesn't. There's nothing cohesive. There's a good fight that I mentioned in my tweet, but overall this movie sucks. And it's why the fuck did I just spend $20 on this when you said it was awesome? Yeah. I'm not that type of person anyway, but I feel like a lot of people are, and I think that's why a lot of people are dismissive of critics in general, because you always get that whole thing where it's see it for yourself, don't worry about it,
which I agree with that for sure, but especially with the bigger movies, I feel like when those reviews come out, those aggregate scores, it's a good indicator if the movie's good or not.
For sure. Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Once you're getting into I don't know, I guess I'm sounding snobby here, but once you're getting into more independent films, it's there's more of a range there, which should I believe this or not?
Right. I think in those times you're kind of more curating what it is you're going to see, because it's not something that normally is on your radar. I mean, I've been noticing it a lot as I'm watching a lot of independent films. But the hype is definitely something that for me, it can either be if it gets overhyped, I just won't go see it because I just be it can't be that good. Or it's just it's so much that I'll be because a lot of times, especially say the Marvel movies, they come out and you're it's going to be a massive movie. I don't even bother to see it the first day or the first weekend, because everyone's going to be there. So I wait a week to go during the day or something, and then sometimes I forget, and then I just be I should wait longer. And to the point where I'm just I didn't see it, or do I really want to see it? Because at the point, by the time I want to go see it, the next big film came out, and it's just oh, I should probably go see this one, but I didn't go see that one. And I was supposed to go see that other movie. I'm pointing I'm moving my hands if I'm going in a different direction, but that's what I'm trying to say, because it's in the past, and so I guess for me the hype can also exhaust me, because it's almost oh, I don't know if I should see this, or I really want to see this, because I mean sometimes you go see something and you're just that wasn't as good. Okay, so now we're gonna go back to a film that you love. We talked about this before, Annihilation. That was super hyped.
You bring up this movie so much.
It was super hyped, and I was hyped to see it.
Was it hyped though? Really?
It was.
Or maybe the stuff you're reading.
Because after Ex Machina, they were it's the next big film, because obviously you had this huge cast, and it's a sci-fi film. For everybody, it was kind of we needed something different beyond Alien, the Alien franchise. Because at that point, Alien, that's another series that kind of took a shit towards the end, right? It was super overhyped. What is it? What was that first one? The
Prometheus.
Prometheus. Yeah. And then Covenant.
Alien Covenant, yeah.
Both films which visually beautiful, but they just all fell apart. They're like not good.
I mean,
I like
there's
I like watching
Prometheus
them.
has a good afterlife, because like it did get quite like a lot of people who love it now.
It's
Uh,
interesting. Yeah,
I
for
was
sure.
mixed on it. Alien Covenant was a piece of shit though.
That's what I'm saying. Like it's like they were overhyped, and you were expecting something good because obviously Ridley Scott was attached to some of these, or both of them, I
Hmm.
think.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was just like critics were saying it was good until you see it, and they're like, well, now they're saying it sucks. Um, and the same thing. Oh, yeah, I lost. So I was going back to Annihilation.
Yeah.
Because it was the next big film, obviously, because he got it right after Ex Machina. Everyone loved Ex Machina, right? It was good.
Hmm.
And now they're like, oh, it's his next big film because it's huge. It's going to be this weird sci-fi film. I go in there and I'm completely bored. The first time, obviously, it took a while for me to get into it. So, has there anything like been like that for you, or have you just kind of been pleasantly like, yeah, that's exactly how I expected it to be after I read all these glowing remarks for this particular film?
I mean, I guess I've been known. I know I've said this before here, but like to be a contrarian. So if I go into
Same.
something
Hmm.
thinking it's hyped, like I kind of want to go against that hype, and I don't like I don't like that aspect of me that much. So
Yeah. Well, I kind of
I
want. That's one thing to be a contrarian, but for me, sometimes I want it to suck because I'm like it'll fall more in my favor. Like I knew it. That movie was a
yeah.
piece of shit, but
Yeah, so I mean, with that, I guess when the first time I saw, which I'm an idiot, but the first time I saw Mad Max, Fury Road, well, first of all, we saw it in 3D, and I fucking hate 3D. Like,
mhm.
if I see a film in 3D, it literally doesn't ruin the experience necessarily, but it's gonna make it's just I can't get a good idea of whether or not I like the film if I
Right.
watch it in 3D. It's like
Yeah.
the first time I saw Mad Max, and I think I was a little buzzed too, so it was just overwhelming, because it's
Yeah, that's
obviously
what I say.
a
Like it's
big hype
another
issue.
layer that you have to like deal with.
Hmm.
Which is just
But then I went and obviously that movie had been crazy hyped, and then I went and saw it again. I'm like, no, it's a masterpiece. I was supposed to do like the best films of the decade, because everybody was doing their decade piece
oh right.
at the end of this year. It would have been my number one. I think it's
Yeah.
right, and I think it was a lot of people's number one. It's a perfect
It's an amazing.
movie.
It's so funny that you mentioned that because I don't know where it's been in my head, but
Hmm.
for the longest time I was watching it like that was a film that I was watching a lot, like over and over again. Like I did go see
Yeah,
it in the theater because I was hyped for it. I'm not a big fan of Tom Hardy. I think he's an overhyped actor,
yeah,
but
he overacts a lot.
yeah. So I was like, I don't know if I really want to. I didn't really give a shit about this guy, but it is George Miller from the originals, and
Yeah.
I'm like, this guy knows what he's doing for the most part. Obviously, he's supposedly going to make another one. But yeah, I went to go see it the first time. Absolutely loved it. Second time, my dad hadn't seen it, and my sister wanted to see it, so we went again, and it was in 3D. At that point, I was like, well, whatever. I already know it's a great film. I'll do that and I'll watch it. Some of it is still cheesy. When you see it the first time without 3D, you're like, yeah, you can tell the parts that are supposed to be in 3D.
Hmm.
Like when that shit flies at you, like, okay, that's supposed to pop in your face. And then I saw it again when they released it in black and white, which I also really, really liked. So that just really, really cool. But that's an interesting choice or example, I should
Yeah, and
say.
I've flipped on stuff like I'm known as like my buddy Alex calls me out. I once had this picture of like me sitting in the front of a roller coaster, and he took it and he put classic 180 on it because like I always flip flop on things. Uh, and so that's actually is going to be one of my once I start my YouTube, that's going to be like a video series I want to do, just like
That's
films
funny.
I've seen that
Yeah, that's
I've
cool.
completely had a change of heart on.
Yeah.
And Hunger Games was one of those. Like I went in, I guess I didn't know much about Hunger Games. Obviously, I knew it was based on like these popular teen books. Uh, but like going in, I thought I was expecting something along the lines of Battle Royale, like so
Mhm.
something. And I don't even think
Yeah, I
Battle
mean,
Royale is that great, but like this violent, I guess.
yeah.
And it wasn't that. So like it was a case of me going into a film and having expectations of what I think it's going to be, and it being something else. And then I went ahead and watched it again, and then I respected it a lot more because I knew going in what it was. So
That's funny you mentioned it like that because you got a greater appreciation for it after the fact. For me, I think I saw it and I was like, this is crap. This is it. And I watched the entire series, but I was like,
I haven't. I just because they split the last one in 2 parts, and I don't think I think I saw the first part, and I didn't even bother seeing the second part. I don't know why. Like I think they're all right movies.
Yeah, I mean, it's all right. Decent filler stuff. A lot of it's like the typical. That part of the decade was like the whole run of like young adult, right? Like type of books.
Like Twilight and
Twilight. The Maze Runner.
Harry Potter was wrapping up.
Yeah. Maze Runner was another one which I didn't get to finish, which actually I thought was kind of interesting. I didn't think the leads were all good at acting, but the story seemed interesting to me. I never saw it. I guess another film called The Giver, which was with Jeff Bridges. Also never saw that one. But I do want to mention when you were talking about that, films that for me after the fact, I didn't like. After the first time I went in thinking like, this is actually really good, but then I was like, nah, this movie's trash. I would say Juno for one. Juno, I can't watch anymore because I think it's just horrible. I hate the writing. The other one,
Diablo Cody's writing does great, people.
Yeah,
I haven't seen Juno in a bit. I do like Juno, but yeah.
What's the Napoleon Dynamite? Which I thought was great, like the first couple times, and then afterwards I was just like, this is fucking painfully hard to watch. But at the same time, I love Nacho Libre, which is another one of I forgot the director's name. Yeah, I can't think of his name.
Think of it either.
But anyway, I would just wanted to go over just a couple other ones that I thought were really overhyped and just didn't live up to the hype. Is obviously the most recent Star Wars films, like all this whole. I guess it's not a second generation. The most recent generation of Star Wars films have not, have fallen flat, and not even the trilogy. I think even with Rogue One and Solo, I like Solo. It's okay. It's not bad.
That's the only one I haven't. Well, I mean, I haven't seen the last Star Wars, and I didn't see Solo just because I felt like as excited. I mean, I'm not a Star Wars fan, but I was still excited for it to not be in George Lucas's hands anymore and for Disney to take it. But I think they've mishandled the property pretty bad. I mean, it's not. They didn't have a plan for the trilogy, but I think they also like saturated the market with Star Wars films. So by the time Solo came out, like people were just like, we don't want any more of this right now.
Yep.
And then they started canceling other, there's supposed to be a Jabba the Hutt movie, maybe a Boba Fett thing, and like those got put to the wayside. So
in typical Disney fashion, they just kind of like take everything and just want to make a shit ton of money. I mean, all films do, but Disney does that by the nines. They just want to.
Especially now with their fucking, they're remaking all of their classic Disney films, which like.
That's the live action, right?
I guess it's a weird thing to kind of like put my flag in the ground on, but I am not going to support any more of those films. Like the last one I saw was Beauty and the Beast, and I refused. Like I didn't see Aladdin, I didn't see Lion King.
I actually do want to still see Aladdin. I was kind of hyped for Lion King, and then I didn't see it, and I was like, do I really want to see this? Like, I mean, I could just watch the original. I'm fine with the original.
And that's my favorite animated film.
I don't.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say really quick. I think what I'm realizing is that I don't mind live action remakes of Disney films that already incorporated live or like people. Like even beforehand, right? Like the 101 Dalmatians. That was already with people, and I was like, oh, that's cool because it's like Glenn Close's Cruella de Vil was really good. I'm sure there's other ones that I can't think of. I was really hyped for Mulan because, like, again, that's still very much a story centered around actual humans.
Yeah.
So I could see that being a real thing. But when it came to stuff like you said, Beauty and the Beast is, it could be cool, whatever. Then Lion King, Jungle Book. I just like Jungle Book. Jungle Book's always been a fun film.
Yeah, I heard. I didn't see it, but I heard.
And that one was good because it's I think Favreau did Lion King as well, but
yeah.
But yeah, for Jungle Book, I think it was really good because you needed that kid. The kid kind of grounded everything versus just, if you make a whole entire film with animals just talking like that, like what?
Which I heard that's what the issue is, like the fact that it's photorealistic. So like the animals can emote, so it just feels dry. And I'm like, okay, I don't think I need to see that for myself.
Yeah.
And I heard they retooled the songs. It's like, no, just keep them how they are. I don't need like new versions of these songs. They're already great.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, you could just tell they're doing it for money, and I don't blame them. All these movies are going to make so much fucking money. So
That's the thing, right? Even if the movie flops, like
mhm.
by the standards of critics, they
Yeah,
still end up making a ton of money.
it doesn't matter. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's Disney. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to think any other hype movies. So I mean, I like Avatar. I thought it was, visually it was something that we hadn't seen before.
Yeah.
Definitely like the story was pretty generic, and everybody knows that. Fern Gully, it was just Fern Gully. Uh, so I mean,
Well,
I guess
and even on top of that, it's the typical like white man comes to save the natives.
for sure.
Like, oh, he realizes what it's like for them and wants to become one of them to save them because they can't do it themselves. Yeah. But I mean, like, but you're right because the experience of seeing that film is what really made it. Sometimes that happens. I feel like that comes around very often when like a new technology or a new kind of experience comes around. The story or whatever is kind of generic, but it's just necessary for them to be able to use the technology to do that.
Yeah.
Like kind of like when you start seeing stuff where and I think Marvel and Disney popularized this is where they take some of their like actors who are like just very old and they just make them look young again.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of like we just need a reason to kind of do this, like which was very, very, I think at its greatest peak right now was for The Irishman.
Yeah.
Where Scorsese was using it for making everybody young. De Niro, Pesci, and all those guys. And it looked weird because
No, yeah.
they looked young, but they're still moving like old men.
No, so yeah, I'm already fucking. Why am I forgetting? This is awful. I should not forget that I didn't even say. So our last episode, right? I meant to mention The Irishman because that's a movie that like I couldn't finish because of that, and I still want to go ahead and finish it because I did hear it was a good movie.
It
Like the
is.
length doesn't bother me necessarily, but that face animation stuff is just so weird. Like I just wish, and I understand like why he wanted to do that. But like you see all these cause you see all these deep fake videos on like Instagram or
Mm-hmm.
YouTube, and those are done so much better than the fucking movie did it. It's like how could you not have hired one of these people to
Because
make it
it's
look right?
2 minutes, 3 minutes.
And it's like it's not hard. And yeah,
That's true.
there's that scene in The Irishman where fucking De Niro goes to the store and like takes the guy out and beats him up, and it looks so bad because he could barely even move. But yeah.
That's true. Yeah, and that's the thing. Like for me, it was a good film, but I had to stop it because I'm like, all right, I gotta do something. Like I gotta, work, eat or something like that. So it's a film that I wish kind of had an intermission in a way, like a good spot to stop.
Yeah.
And I feel like old films used to do this back in the day. Like they had a legit intermission, especially like musicals and stuff. They'd just be like,
Uh-huh.
we're stopping right now. Like I think even
Hateful Eight had intermission, and
which
it
one?
wasn't even Hateful Eight,
I was about to
and it
mention that.
wasn't even like it's not even that long of a movie. It's like 2 hours and 50 minutes, but the intermission worked, and
Yeah.
it was at the perfect time. So
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I feel like that's kind of necessary in some of these films. Even I think like for even The Irishman, it would have been okay if they turned it into like a mini series, like like maybe like
Mhm.
4 episodes cut up like that. I understand it's a film,
Yeah.
but it is hard, especially if we talked about this many times. Where at home it's very easy to get distracted. So
Yeah.
to put on a 3-hour movie at home is really hard.
Speaking of being distracted, remember we were talking about on like our morning show, watching shit on the phone, which
Yeah,
I do not support.
yeah.
I watched an episode of BoJack Horseman today on the phone. I'm like, this is a great idea. Well, first of all, it's a fucking TV show, so fuck TV shows. As far as like my respect. Uh, I sound so fucking snobby this episode. But no, it was good because yeah, like there's no way to there's no way to go in text because you got to leave the screen.
You're watching that.
Your
Yeah.
attention is there. So
Um,
I might do it more often, but I'm not going to be watching movies on my
yeah, I
phone.
would say like unless you actually have no other choice, but
Hmm.
I was gonna go really quick over some other stuff that I thought was like super. I would say super hype, but hyped again. And I mentioned this before,
Hmm.
like Phantom Thread. I had mentioned that I never finished it. That was another film that was hyped that I kind of waited on. Same thing with Birdman. There's another one called At Eternity's Gate, which is Julian Schnabel. Man, I should know this because he's an artist, and we had some of his art at the museum I worked at.
Yeah.
It's the Willem Dafoe film with which is about Vincent Van Gogh. People say Van
Yeah.
Gogh, but it's Van Gogh. And
Oh, is it? I never knew that.
that's how it. I mean, that's how it's said in the Dutch.
Learn something new every day.
But nobody really says it. Even though like they know that that's how you're supposed to say it, no one says it that way. Um, and it was just like it was just boring, you know. Like I
Yeah.
had seen like he had made this other film called The Diving Bell and the Butterfly.
Yeah, I heard that was great.
Um, and that movie was really good. I was surprised that he had directed it because I was like, this movie is really fucking good. And so, but beyond that, I don't remember what else he might have done. And then this film came out. I'm like, oh, whatever. I really like this any kind of story revolving around Vincent Van Gogh. I just said I have to see it.
Yeah.
And Willem Dafoe's a really good actor.
Yeah.
I watched it. It wasn't that great.
Willem.
And then Willem. And then to contrast that with a film that I just had like no preconceived notions for or expectations for because I had no idea. I mean, I did see it because I thought it was beautiful. It was the other Vincent film called Loving Vincent, and the reason I really wanted to see this is because it was fully animated, right?
Yeah.
Like every frame was actually literally painted, and I think I would have been blown away with that. If the movie sucked, I would have still been like, this is still a beautiful film. But the movie was really good. I was just like, wow, this is a really well done. It's a beautiful film. It's a really good story. And then other stuff, like I said, other hype movies. We talked about Aliens, also the Predator series, the last couple of X-Men films, all overhyped. Just kind of fell flat after after the first two. There hasn't been a really okay. I'll take that back.
Days of Future Past was great.
Days of the Future Past and First Class were the ones. It was a completely different cast, different directors and stuff like that. So I agree that was good. There's only one scene that I love in I think it's called Apocalypse, right? X-Men Apocalypse.
Yeah,
I think that's what it's called.
One. Yeah, I think it was called that.
Yeah, and it's a scene that they cut from the film that and I forgot that there was a whole scene where Quicksilver saves all the kids in the school. You know, he drive, and that was like the big effects shot in there, which was impressive. But at the same time, it's like they've done this before. For me, my favorite scene was because this is technically in the 80s or early 90s or something like that, and they cut it, but it was basically all the teenagers. And this is why they missed the house blowing up, is because they go to the mall. And it's like Nightcrawler, Cyclops, Jubilee, I forgot somebody else, Shadowcat maybe. And they're just like, and it's like montage with like 80s music, whatever. And they're like in the record store. Okay. Nightcrawler's breakdancing, Jubilee's like at the arcade. And I was like, this is what the movie should have been. Like them just chilling, hanging out. Like they're fucking kids. Let them be kids.
Yeah.
Cut out from the film. Even if it was in the film, it wouldn't make any difference. But I was like, well, whatever. I like this scene. I wished we'll never be able to see this again, but that movie sucked. It sucked.
Always compared to like the X-Men animated series, like the movies. Even though the movies, like the first two were great. Days of Future Past was great, but it never captured that same feeling of the animated series, like more like playful. It always seemed like overly serious, I guess.
For
sure. Which I understand. It's a serious topic, but yeah.
So since I was mentioning that about going into seeing that Vincent Van Gogh film where I had no expectations, what are some of the films that you had no expectations for? Like you just kind of didn't know what to expect, and you're just like, all right, well, let's just see what they got to do or say.
Well, like for me, it's like going into a film, like meeting the film where it's at. You know what I mean? Like for instance, I guess like an example. Go ahead.
Equal ground, basically. Like,
well, just like knowing, if the example I would come up with this year would be Sonic the Hedgehog. Like,
that's a good point. Yeah. I
know I'm just going in, just like hoping to have a fun time.
Yeah.
They fixed the character design. Thank God, because it was so fucking awful. But just
I'd fine with it.
Oh no, that was awful. That movie would have flopped if Sonic looked like that. It would have flopped. So I mean, I'm glad that they listened. I mean, that's a conversation for another day as far as like listening to what fans tell you. But I think that's a case of doing what you should have. I think that was the right choice to make. to listen to the fans there. But yeah, just like going into a film like just with those like tempered expectations usually ends up resulting in like a good time, you know. Maybe it's when you leave that film, it kind of just it's out of your mind and you're never gonna think about it, but at least you had a good time while you were in the theater.
Right.
Which I kind of have mixed feelings about that. That's why I like going to see so many mainstream films or like so many superhero films. Usually you just watch them and then none of that sticks with you and you just go home.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's what they call them, like the popcorn flicks. You know,
Yeah.
it's a roll, or like I think it was Scorsese who said it, right? They're kind of like roller coasters.
Mm-hmm.
It's like fun for the moment you're in it, and then you just kind of walk away, and that's it.
I even though it was snobby, I agreed with everything Scorsese said about Marvel films.
I feel like, I mean, because I'm a huge Marvel fan, a huge comic book fan, I'm a big Star Wars fan. Part of me is like, no, this means a lot more to us because we're fans of it. But in general, the general audience is gonna just go to see a really good action movie.
Mm-hmm.
To them, Captain America is Chris Evans. You know, Iron Man is Robert Downey Jr. To us, it's like, yeah, it's just some dude playing him. They're doing a great job, but they're bringing these stories that we know to the big screen. So that elevates it for us because we've already followed them in the comics. So we're gonna see this on the big screen.
And I've been a comic guy, so I'm kind of that's where I'm coming from in regards to that. I understood what he was getting at. Whereas like, less so Star Wars, but like the characters in Marvel, as much as I have a connection with them, like Infinity War, that's my favorite film. I had an emotional response at the end of that film. But those don't seem like real people, I guess. You know what I mean?
No, for sure. No, and I was gonna say, like, I don't have anything against what he said. Like, I agree as well. I just don't. I think the way he went about it was kind of like wrong, and then just kept pushing it in a way, like you said, it just came off too snobby.
Yeah, it's hard to say something like that.
Yeah,
it's hard to say something like that without it coming off that way.
It's a strong opinion for sure, and people are gonna automatically hate on it no matter what. So I would have been like, you don't have to say anything, dude. You're Scorsese. You can say like they're fucking pieces of shit, and you're like, right on. It's funny you mentioned also Sonic because it is true. Like I had already expected it to be bad, but I'm just like, I'm here in support of video games being made into films, no matter how terrible they are. I want them to succeed, but when I saw that, I was like, this is gonna be bad. And I'm like, this is funny. This is great. I like it. I want to have this movie. There are some other stuff that I don't have that much of a list for stuff like that because I couldn't really think of it, but I could think of it, or I could think of other stuff where I had no expectations, but I heard was supposed to be good. That was all I heard because it was the most recently, I think around last year, the Jim Jarmusch film called The Dead Don't Die. That movie was terrible. It was horrible. I think I was like kind of like on a pseudo date, and she's like, "Let's go see that."
Pseudo date.
I don't know if we were actually dating or not until later on. She told me we were. It was kind of a date, and we went into it. So she's like, I'll go because I think I had bought dinner, and she's like, I'll pay for the movies. I'm like, all right, cool. Like we're extending this date.
Sounds like an even trade.
We're getting far into something that doesn't really matter out of context, but we finally went there and we both sat there because she thought the same thing. Like, I don't know, like it's Jim Jarmusch, Bill Murray's in it, Adam Driver's in it, all these really cool people are in it. And again, you normally think they're going to be good. Did you see the film?
I didn't, just because it was a zombie film.
Fair enough. Yeah. Well, I don't know what the movie really is because it was. Yeah, the zombies turn into dust. Aliens come. A weird Swedish person who's like a funeral parlor lady, and she's like a ninja, but she's also an alien. It's bad. We both walked out of there like, what the fuck? Like she almost felt cheated. Like, why do we go to this? And she was like apologizing, like, no, we both didn't know what we were getting into. We thought it would be good, and it was pretty bad. And it was so funny because this is like we're in the middle of like hipsterville here, so, and there's like everyone else in the audience were like, I think for the majority of them, they were just like, yeah, that was interesting. You know, it's pretty. I like what you try to do here. And I was like, what the fuck? This movie sucks.
Well, it's like when that movie, like the trailers came out, it's like what attracted Jim Jarmusch to make a zombie movie?
Yeah. And I read up and afterwards, I'm like, what's the deal with this movie? And he's like, oh, it's because we're all really addicted to technology. We're always on our phones. And I'm like, what? like I'm trying to make the connection, and there was very little there when people were pointing it out, like when this happens or when this happened, it means this, and I'm like, does it though? I don't know. I think you're just saying that because you want it to make sense, but I don't think it's there. It's not
So he
there.
didn't. They're just reading into it. He didn't like do a good job
I
articulating
don't think
those
so. I mean,
themes,
like,
I guess.
I feel like it's one of those things. Like, it is an art house movie. It's an art house zombie movie, but it's like in the same sense where you go to see a piece of art and you're like, this looks like shit, but everyone's like, no, it's amazing. I could see what the artist is saying. It's from their background. And you're like, what background? It's a fucking white canvas. What are you talking about? Or something like that. You know, that's what it feels like. Like we're getting cheated and they're, what is it, the emperor's clothes? Like where he's wearing an invisible, like there's that what do you call it? It's like a fable or a parable. You know the story I'm talking about.
I
The
don't know
emperor's
what.
clothes. You never heard that story growing
No,
up.
I have not. I have no
What?
idea what you're talking about.
Like you have to look it up at least. But anyway, long story short, he asked some dude, I think he's gonna kill him or not, and the guy says like, I'm gonna make you like the best looking clothes ever, like you're gonna love it.
Mm-hmm.
And then he does. He gives it to him, and he's like, what the fuck? You didn't give me anything. I don't see anything. It's like, yeah. Look at it. I'm putting it on you right now. Look at it. It's great. It's invisible, but no, everyone's gonna think you look great. And he's
Okay.
like, and the emperor's like, yeah, you're right. I look awesome. Everyone, look at me. Look how awesome I look. And they're like, they're not gonna say no to him because it's the emperor.
Mm-hmm.
But the guy cheated him, basically lied to him just so he wouldn't get killed. Just read it. It's not like a long story. It's a little life lesson type story.
Okay. Yeah.
But that's what it is.
Fable, like you said.
Yeah, it's like one of those things where like everyone's just saying it, so you're just like, oh yeah, no, you're right. I totally get it, and you're like, there's nothing there to see. That's what that was like that. So I don't know. I was that mad because I was just like, I could see why Bill Murray was in it because he's been in a couple of Jarmusch films.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, there's a part in there, break character, and like literally, it's all meta. Like they break the fourth wall. Like mention reading the script, which is like stupid. Like Adam Driver's like, oh yeah, no, it's all good. It's like, what? And then Bill Murray's like, what do you mean it's all good? Like, oh, I read the script. No, that's good. It's like, what? You got to read the script? Yeah, well, everything's gonna be fine. I'm like, what? Like even from the beginning, they're playing the music. Like it'll say like the dead don't die in the credits. It's like the dead don't die by this guy.
Uh-huh.
And then they're playing the music, and he's like, "Oh, it's that song, Dead Don't Die by that guy." Like, like literally, like it's the theme song for the whole film, and they bring it up like a couple of times, and it's like, "What are you doing?
It's
Like,
just
why
some
are you?"
meta bullshit.
Yeah, it made no sense. Yeah, I mean, like that's all I could think of right now, like that. So I don't know if you have anything else.
Yeah, I've had a film in my head and I forgot it.
I'm bad. I'm sorry. You know me, I like to ramble on and talk too much.
No, it's all good.
I would say like there are parts in films that I just kind of like get super films. I think I just wanted to talk about. I mentioned like there's parts in films that really get hyped that when you see them they just kind of live up to the hype. And I'm just talking about not only just the film but just parts of the film. So like the thing that comes to mind immediately is like when you first see like that shot in Jurassic Park when they drive up and they see the dinosaurs.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, "Oh my God, welcome to Jurassic Park!" Like that to me still like hits me, you know, like seeing that film. And there's like stuff like that too. Like I know you mentioned Mortal Kombat in the last episode, seeing like Goro or seeing like Scorpion fight Sub-Zero, and you're like, "Oh shit, this is happening!" Like the fucking harpoon thing, and like that to me, still watching that is just like, damn, this was so cool. Yeah. And then most recently, the other part that I was going to mention that no one knew was going to happen in the film, and we're already, you know, like you said, you mentioned Infinity War. I was going to say Endgame is like my favorite part of the whole Avengers sagas.
No, you're wrong.
Whatever. No. I mean, the only reason I say that is because it's fan service. You know, it's like they do everything at the end.
No, yeah, Endgame's great. It's no Infinity War.
Infinity War is like the Empire Strikes Back, basically. Like Empire Strikes Back was the best film of the Star Wars saga. But yeah,
I disagree
like
with that as well.
What?
I disagree with that as well. I think Last Jedi is the best film.
Are you fucking kidding me? What?
It's a thing I have with my buddy Mike. I genuinely think, yeah, I don't like Star Wars. Who the fuck cares about my opinion? But I think
You're being contrarian now because everyone thinks the same thing.
I thought Last Jedi was awesome.
I mean, I'm not saying
it's incredibly entertaining. It's incredibly entertaining.
Again, it's the same thing, just like Endgame. It's just fan service. They win, big deal. They got a lot of.
I don't know if it was fan service. They pissed off a lot of fucking people. Rian Johnson pissed off a shit ton of people with Last Jedi, which I understand. Like they're coming from a different place than I am, so like I don't care. But I'm sorry. Back to Avengers, I guess.
Yeah. So in that part, obviously, a lot of that leading up to that, everyone was just hyped to see the film. You know, everyone knew Thanos was going to get his ass kicked. Everyone was waiting for it. But the moment when Cap wields Mjolnir, like Thor's hammer, I think it's probably one of the single most greatest moments of like, I think, in Marvel history, in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Mm-hmm. For comic book fans to see that happen, because we've seen it in comics, and then they tease it a little bit in one of the other Avenger films when everyone tries to like lift it and he can't, like nobody can move it, but then he actually does it. And so I think that's like, for me, that every time I see that, I'm just like,
I mean, the crowd went crazy. I've never really read comics, so and I didn't remember that moment like in one of the earlier films in regards to that. But so, people love that. I remembered the film I was going to talk about and why. So I mean, as far as like low expectations, but like a lot of the time that happens is like when movies come out and they get fucking terrible reviews, but you're like, I want to see it anyway. Yeah. So it's either really terrible or it's not as bad as you thought it would be.
Right. Yeah.
And for me, it's not a good film, but Cats last year, it's an awful movie. But like, I actually it's not a good movie by any means, but I guess I was taking it more serious. I guess my contrarian side came out because obviously that film came to a point where people wanted to see it because of how bad it was.
Right.
And so it was getting audiences because of that, and I definitely understood that. But I liked a lot of the music. Andrew Lloyd Webber could write a good tune, so.
Right.
I enjoyed that. I mean, the story's a mess. They look creepy as hell. I think some of them look pretty cool though. But that was a case of like hearing how terrible it was and actually like genuinely enjoying my experience with it.
Right.
Yeah.
Like you just kind of went with it. Like I was one of those people who was like, I'm gonna go see this because it looks fucking terrible. But then I got scared. I was like, no, this looks so terrible. I'm good. I don't need to see this. So I haven't seen it.
And there was a mixture of people in the theater. Like you could tell most of the people there were just there to get drunk or do drugs and watch Cats. But then there was that other segment of people who are probably like diehard into Broadway. And so they're getting offended that other people are reacting a certain way to the film.
Right.
And I was kind of on their side, just to be a contrarian, but I was kind of on their side in regards to taking it more serious.
There's a couple. Well, actually, I only know of Alamo Drafthouse that does like the cat viewings. That they just like, put that like, hey, dress up in a cat suit or whatever as a cat and come here. And they're just like, they do this whole, like they try to make that into like a Rocky Horror Picture Show type thing, like come and like sing along and do this. Like that seems like a little bit forced just because it's bad. Like you said, it's not as bad as other films that get mocked like that, like The Room. Like The Room is bad and it's like it has a cult status to it. But I mean, it is bad. Whereas Cats is just like ugly. It's just like,
it's bad too. It's just such a weird, it's a weird concept.
It's a weird concept, but
the story is so terrible. The story is just like character introductions. It's just like one song after another of introducing people.
Yeah.
So there's like no direction there, but some of the songs I liked, and some of the cats looked cool. So, like Judi Dench looks like a perfect tabby cat. It looks perfect. Ian McKellen, he's like this bum homeless cat. He looks fucking terrible, and he's terrible in the movie.
Yeah. Idris Elba.
I'm mixed on how he looks. He's like a gangster pimp cat. But I like him because it's Idris Elba.
Oh man, I just forgot what I was gonna say. I don't even know if it was about cats anymore. I lost it.
Yeah. I guess this is what we get for pushing the podcast back an hour later. I'll take full blame there.
I mean, like that's pretty much it. That's funny you mentioned that one. I'm sure there's been way more like that. It's like now that we're doing this podcast, I think I'm going to be more conscious of everything that I watch, because I just kind of want to make a note of it. Like, yeah, I watch a lot of stuff. And we mentioned before, I have like the AMC A list. So because of that, I try to watch whatever comes into the theater. I just want to see it like 3 movies a week, use it. And I did want to mention now that this is a film that I wanted to bring up. And I will bring it up, and I want to talk more about it in depth on Sunday for our morning show. But it was a movie that I just kind of like, this looks bad. Who would ever make a documentary about this? But it's a documentary based off of Bill Murray called The Bill Murray Stories.
Okay.
Because of the whole, like, I don't know if it's a subculture, but like about people meeting Bill in very weird situations. Right? Like, oh, he showed up in the bathroom behind me and he said I would never, like, no one would ever believe me. Like, that became like this big old joke. And everyone, like, he would show up in these random places and just kind of hang out or do something, right? And not to get any that far into it, but I thought it was stupid when I first saw the trailers for, like, what, this is dumb, because I don't even think he's in the movie. And it actually turned out to be really good. I liked it a lot. It's still a very light documentary, but I liked it. So we'll talk more about it on Sunday, though, because there's a lot to unpack in that film.
Yeah, and like getting onto something kind of different, because I guess mentally I kind of didn't get into this. As far as like when I was thinking about my brain's fucking up right now. As far as thinking about the topic itself and how like other people's opinions affect your own. Like for me, movies, it's not. It's easy for me to compartmentalize like reading a review and just kind of like going and having my own reaction to a film. But going back to the beginning of that music critic that I listened to, Anthony Fantano, like, music isn't my thing as much. So it does really affect, and I'm not sure if it's the same for you, but it does really affect my opinion in regards to like if I see him do a review of something, of an album or whatnot, and then those ideas are like planted in my mind. So and same thing, like if I listen to a podcast and those critics are reviewing a film, when me and you talk about it on this podcast here, sometimes I'll find myself like repeating things that they said just in my own words, and I always hate when that happens. Like, I want to be original. Like I want it to be, come from my own train of thought, from my own experience with the film. Right. But it's really hard. Like, it's really hard for that not to bleed into your own feelings on things. And it even, for me, it even goes further than just, this guy who reviews music is like influencing my opinion on this music. It even goes like with people, you read gossip or someone like tells you, oh, I met this celebrity and I heard this and this about it, or I had a bad experience with them. And then that colors your thoughts, your views of that person, even though that might not like be based on reality or based in reality.
True. Yeah.
So do you ever like have trouble with that? Like feeling like your opinions are your own?
No, that's funny you bring that up too, because I just mentioned that with somebody who on Instagram, like I was telling them, like I don't like to follow a lot of artists because I feel like eventually it starts bleeding into what I want to create in terms of as an art. And I know we're shifting over from music and movies, but as an artist, like I don't like seeing too much art or like following other artists' stuff, because eventually it bleeds into my consciousness of what I want to create, and I'll start making something of it, and then I'll see like, oh wait, I was just copying this person. Like I was like,
sometimes it's like subconsciously done, right?
Yeah, like was it really my idea that I wanted to do this, or am I just trying to copy this dude? And then there's times where it's like I can do that and I'm going to do that, but it's like, why did I waste time doing that when it wasn't even like my style or my thing? Yeah. The same thing with music. It's like even less so. Like I hate sites like Pitchfork. I fucking hate Pitchfork. But at the same time, I used to read a lot of Stereo Gum. I don't know if you know that website.
Yeah, I've heard of it. Yeah.
Yeah, Stereo Gum. I felt like these people were more like me. Like they were more humble in terms of how they were just talking about music. Like, oh, if you like this, it's probably like this. And I'm like, I like that, so I'm gonna listen to this. And they would always have like this, like kind of like, this is the new music that just came out this week, and you could sample it. And I would just kind of like sample, like, oh, that does sound kind of cool, so I'll check that out. It was back when pirated music too, so it was a lot easier to just kind of like check through everything. But
Spotify buttons.
My friend was telling me the same thing. She gives me shit for not. She's like, I'm making a Spotify playlist. It's for you, but you're never gonna listen to it. But
it'll be there when you're ready.
Yeah, man. Exactly. The one thing I did want to mention, I try not to forget, guys, because this is an all entertainment podcast, and I know we focus heavily more on film, but it is about everything music. But I want to get, because of this is actually very important to bring up, is that video games, absolutely, I will check the ratings first before I buy a game. Yeah. Even if I'm hyped about something, I'm like, I want to make sure that this game is going to be good, that people like it enough for me to play it.
Yeah, and video games are like so much easier to judge like objectively,
Yeah.
Like films or music, like that's so subjective, but games are more, there's technical aspects to them and there's a gameplay. And so it's either good or it's bad. Like it's not
right. Everyone for the most part has the same experience. You're all doing the same exact thing. Mm-hmm. The game is meant to make you feel a certain way for certain things. What was I about to say? For the most part, I'll check the reviews. And what is it that you just said? Because it just kind of related to what not just this moment. You were going
like
into
it about objectivity.
Yeah, because I think there's been very rarely a few times where people thought a game was really good and I didn't like it at all. One thing that comes to mind is like a very old Rockstar game called State of Emergency. I don't know if you remember that game. It's an old PlayStation 2 game.
I bought it, unfortunately. Yeah.
Yeah. So for some reason, everyone thought it was great. I think what made it good was just because there were so many people running in that game. Like it's just busy, right? There's like a ton of shit happening. And
it was a follow-up to Grand Theft Auto 3, so people were excited.
You were expecting it to be as good. I played it the first day, hated it, and I was young enough that I made my mom return the game. Yeah. And this is during the time, you still can't do it. At GameStop or Funkoland, whatever it was called back then, they basically said, we can't return the game because you opened it. My mom basically just said, like, this is an R-rated game. Why did you sell it to my kid? So we got our money back. But that was the one case where I was just like, what? Like, this is not good. Why did I buy this game? And this I remember before I lose it. Yeah. I think it's more important for gamers to check reviews because you're spending like $60, $70 on this versus a movie, $20, $15 matinee, music also $15, it's still hard-earned money, but you could take a chance versus like, I just dropped down $70 and this game was shit. Like I want to know that this game is going to be good. Yeah. Not only that it's a long game, right? This happens a lot and I don't want to go too far over our normal time, but like say Metal Gear games, like if you skip all the fucking cutscenes, that game is really 30 minutes of gameplay, and it's like, was it really worth it? I mean, you could argue that yes, because it's a whole cinematic experience, but there's no replay value, because you already going on. But I think that's what I'm trying to say. It's like it's important for people to check reviews in that case because you are going to spend a lot of money, and if it's not a good game, you just spent $60, you're never going to get back again.
Yeah, and then just going briefly because you mentioned State of Emergency, going back to hype, with Rockstar, like hype is a big thing for me because like I've tried it multiple times. Like whenever a new Grand Theft Auto comes out or like a Red Dead Redemption or something like that, I get super excited to like buy those games, and I've realized I don't really like open world games. But every time a Rockstar game comes out, it's like, oh, it's Rockstar. They only make a game every 5 years or something like that. And I get excited about it, and I buy it. I play it for a week, and then I never finish it because those aren't my – and those are great games,
For sure.
But that's not my genre, but I still managed to fall into the hype. The only time I didn't was for Red Dead Redemption. But yeah, last few Grand Theft Autos, never beat them.
Yeah,
I had to buy them.
It's funny as you mentioned that too, because I just had this conversation with another buddy of mine who's also a gamer. We both grew up on Mortal Kombat, and he was like, "Check it out! They're bringing back friendships, and they're bringing RoboCop showing up, and all this." I'm like, "Damn, that's awesome!" And he's like, "Did you get 10? Like Mortal Kombat 10? Did you get? I mean, do you have 11? Because they're on at 11 right now."
Yeah.
And I was like, at that point, and this is the same exact thing how you were saying. I used to buy these all the time, and I'm like, I do like fighting games. I like watching them. I'm not saying necessarily I don't like playing them. I do like playing them. I'm just not good at them. I can't really get a lot out of a game like that. Like same thing with Street Fighter. I love Street Fighter because there's that pedigree, right? Like I grew up playing Street Fighter 2. playing it all the way up to now. I bought like Street Fighter 5, and I don't think I played like maybe like 5 hours into it. Because it's like I'm not good at these games. I don't have the time to learn how to fight. I was telling my buddy like I get my ass kicked online all the time. It's not fun. It's exhausting, and I just don't ever play this game again because that's all you do, right? It's all the game is just fight, so I can't do that. So I go to move on to something else. But like just like you, like I keep buying them.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm not into fighting games either too much, but yeah.
That's cool. Like, no, I'm glad we brought that game. I mean, like, games are obviously one of those. It's a area where this obviously really feeds into that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Music, it's different because I think it's more of like, I think that's great now that we have, like, for you guys, Spotify. For me, Pandora and whatever, like, because it'll play similar music to whatever you already do listen to.
Yeah.
And that's great because that definitely opens me up to new groups that I can listen to versus me just listening or reading some snobby reviewers like this new album from this guy's sophomore.
Well, that's the thing. Like with the guy I mentioned, Fantano. Like a lot of people don't like him, and like if you like an album and this guy shits on your album, like it doesn't feel good. It's gonna make you not like the guy. But like, what when I like. That was my initial impression of him, and other friends had the same impression. But it's like when you actually like listen to the person, yeah, you may not agree with them, but as long as they have like reasoned arguments and points, it's still interesting to listen to those reviews.
For sure.
But I definitely am aware, like cognizant of the fact that like when he says things, it could bleed over into my opinion. So now, if an album comes out and I know I'm excited about it, I'll make it a point to listen to it before I could have his opinion affect my own. So
right, and that's how I am too about the films that I see. That's why I look at reviews after the fact, because even if I hate a film, sometimes these reviews will still kind of affect me and bleed into my own. Like, okay, maybe I get that. Maybe it's not as bad as I thought, and it's like, no, it still is, but you just want to sound as smart as this dude or something,
Well, you could also misinterpret a film and not
totally,
really. And so when you hear someone like break it down and kind of explore meanings and themes that you just didn't miss when you saw it, it definitely could have a positive impact on what you think of something. So, yeah.
For sure.
I'm glad we got to that part of it because I feel like that was like my whole conceit of the idea of this episode. And I'm like, holy shit, I've been forgetting like my main theme of like what I wanted to talk about. So I'm glad
the land your plane.
Yeah.
And I think that pretty much wraps it up for this episode, right? Is there anything else you want to close up with, or I feel like I got to say everything I needed to.
Just judge things on your own. Don't take other people's word for it.
Yeah, I mean, like I think that's important for us to say. Like as we do these podcasts as well, I don't think we're ever trying to like influence anybody. It's just our opinions. I mean, we're just talking to each other because we're both fans of film. Yeah. And we'd like to just kind of, I mean, if anything, we want to bring awareness to a lot of the stuff that we see in case that you might be into something or trying something new. But yeah, I would say like, if you do listen to, reviewers, hey, do whatever works for you, I guess, but I feel like you should definitely be open to just trying something on your own. Going into something blind, yeah, it might be a waste of time, but you never know. You might find something else. You might fall down a rabbit hole of like a completely different genre of music, or like a completely different artist, actor, writer, director, all that stuff. So definitely pays to just explore on your own.
Yeah, well said, bud. Well said.
Well, as it's Kirby's gotten up because he says it's time to get up too. I feel like that's pretty much for this episode, like we mentioned. Don't forget that we can find us on YouTube and Instagram and all that good stuff as well. I'm gonna keep repeating it. Rate us, review us.
Please write a review if you guys listen on, especially on if you're on Apple Podcasts. It's pretty simple to write a review on there. It's right baked into like the show page. So if you can, just give us like a 1 or 2 sentence review. Rate it whatever you think is appropriate. And yeah, it'll definitely help out.
For sure. Yeah. And you can follow us on Instagram as always, MY WAWD and hip_arcade. Don't forget Hip Arcade has all the cool stuff. The shirt that I'm wearing is the Jammer Lammy.
I need that shirt.
Versus
I'm mad you didn't send that to me.
I only had enough for making it for myself.
Yeah. Hey, and we're on YouTube now. Hit that subscribe button right there.
For those people who are listening, you can't see the shirt I'm wearing, but you can see it if you're on the YouTube or you're watching us on YouTube.
You got to figure this out. But you got to figure out the pointy thing.
It is, yeah, because I haven't done a YouTube video like this, so I don't know. Wherever the buttons are, follow it.
Hit the bell for notifications. You know, you guys know what you're doing.
I didn't see, I don't even know YouTube that well, so listen to him. Keep watching, keep playing, keep listening, and keep doing what you do. Just do more of it, and we'll see you next time.
Bye, guys.
Joining me as always is my co-host. Sorry, it's fucking fly.
One of those killer hornets.
Yeah.